Well, hello, and happy Friday. How you going? How's your week been? I've had a great week, and it's been a weird week because I've been recovering from my weekend. Now, when I say recovering from my weekend, nothing bad happened. In fact, it was extraordinary. But I've got this big hangover. Now, it's a different kind of hangover than not the hangover you would expect. No. It is a hangover of energy from the most amazing time. And the most amazing time, I went away to Whakatane. I had 3 beautiful friends with me, and we travelled to Whakatane to meet another beautiful friend, and we spent the whole weekend together. And the thing about the weekend is it was fucking life-changing, to be honest. Life-changing weekend. A beautiful weekend where we got to meet some amazing people, make some amazing connections. There was some beautiful healing work. There was all kinds of cool shit. We were in nature. We ate amazing food. We had amazing conversations. It was literally one of the most powerful weekends of my life. And what I love about these kinds of events is you end up in what's called experiential intimacy. Which is sort of like saying, what goes on tour stays on tour, or you had to be there, So you did have to be there. And all week people have been saying to me, how was your weekend? And I'm like, yeah, it was amazing, amazing. And I sometimes think people think I'm withholding information, and I'm not. I'm just really finding it hard to articulate the actual energy of the weekend because it was so extraordinary and you had to be there. And I love experiential intimacy. And when I design events, I'm aiming for that energy, and I'm aiming for the idea that, look, you had to be here. This was such a moment in time that we shared. And the examples of experiential intimacy is often, I remember when I had my first baby and I ended up in a baby class, a prenatal class or whatever, with people I already knew from the town I live in. I didn't know them very well. I'd been to, say, to school with them or whatever, but all of a sudden, within the 6 weeks, we became fucking best friends because we had matching stretch marks. We had matching war stories. We all understood each other so deeply because we were all in the same experience. Now, people who I had known for years who were very, very, very good friends, they hadn't had a baby in the 6 weeks that I'd had my baby. They had no idea. Even those who had babies at other times still couldn't quite drop into that space, So experiential intimacy for me is one of the most beautiful things. And if you say went to university, you might have been in a flat at university and you have a locked experience out of that group of people who you can't replicate that and you can't explain it. Or you've lived in a country, say, or travelled with someone, or, done a tour, or whatever you've done, experiential intimacy is just amazing. And I love human intimacy. I think being intimate with another human where you're seen and felt and understood is actually the greatest gift we can give humans. And people get all hung up, even the word intimacy, it's intimacy, means, you must have shagged him. It's oh my God, no. So sexual intimacy is one of, I believe, the 5 different intimacies. So there's sexual intimacy, which takes no real explaining. If you need that, explained to you, ask your mum about that story. Then there's experiential intimacy, which is what I had on the weekend with my friends, where we were away and we all created and were part of an extraordinary experience. And then there's intellectual intimacy, where your brain, it's your brains have sex, where your brains are just going, oh my God, my brain is connecting with your brain, and you're kind of bouncing and sparring mentally with someone, which is like where your intellect and their intellect kind of connect, and it's a pretty exciting thing. And this can happen like in a work environment, or it can happen in a study environment, or in a mentoring environment where you're just vibing with the other person's brain. And that's like the intellect kind of, yeah, so that's pretty big. Then you have emotional intimacy, where someone sees you emotionally. And that can be a connection. Like I was at a funeral on Tuesday and had this beautiful emotional intimacy moment with this woman who, okay, excuse me, it's been a long week. Yawning, how rude. So the emotional intimacy is when you connect with someone on an emotional level. And you might be crying at the same thing, or you might really feel them in that moment. And so you share a feeling. You might share guilt or grief, or it doesn't have to be a good feeling. It could be a shitty feeling, but there's a feeling that's felt when you're in an emotional intimacy. And then there is spiritual intimacy, where your soul connects with another soul. So that's less about human physicality, body, and feelings, and more around like maybe a soul memory. So if have you met someone who you feel like you've known before? You've known them in another life. You have a soul connection. I'm very lucky to know a lot of my soul connections, and I've spent a lot of time investigating that. And the spiritual intimacy to me is like, oh my God, like you and me, we've been here before. We know each other on a different level. We had different names. We wore different costumes, but my soul recognizes your soul. And I really love the saying namaste, which actually means the light in me sees the light in you. And I think, to me, that sums up spiritual intimacy. My light sees your light, and we recognize each other's light. I think that's beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? Just say, my light sees your light. I love that. So what have we got? And then there's physical intimacy. And physical intimacy is different from sexual intimacy. So a physical intimacy could be just a hug, right? It could be holding hands. It could be someone leaning their back against your back. It could be someone's feet touching your feet. It's not necessarily a sexual intimacy, it's a physicality. And that's also beautiful. So they're all different layers of intimacy. And I'm intrigued as to which ones of those you love, and which ones of those ring your bells, and which ones of those you are used to or not used to, or maybe you haven't even heard of them. A lot of people say to me, oh, I've never heard about experiential intimacy, or I didn't understand what the difference is. So those ones are experiential, sexual, physical, emotional, and spiritual. So they're the 5 different intimacies that humans experience. And I just love them. I love them. Did I say intellectual? I think I did. Yeah, I love them because I love the idea that we have these different ways of connecting. And I have friends who I have a very intellectual intimacy sort of buzz I get from them. I have beautiful friends who emotionally I feel understood by. I have beautiful friends. You know how some people are just the most amazing huggers. So I have a friend, Danette, and Danette is the best fucking hugger. And she calls herself the mother hugger. She's the mother hugger because she's such an amazing hugger. And it's like being hugged, and not just hugged. You know, some people give you a hug and it's like, man, other people hug you and you go, holy fuck, I just got held, you know? Really beautiful hugs, and they keep going and they give to you. I love that. There's a therapy now where people can go and pay to be hugged, and you spend an hour laying in another person's arms, Professional hugging. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing that the world has got so lonely that people are missing out on contact. And maybe you don't have, maybe that you're missing one of these intimacies. Maybe if you're not sexually active, you may not have any sexual intimacy, but that you can still get physical intimacy, right? You might have a friend or a family member that hugs you or holds your hand or whatever. And I know that when I've been with people in really difficult times, the types of holding they like is really interesting. And everyone's different, right? Everyone's different with what they enjoy. But what's your favourite kind? What is your favourite kind? Is it intellectual? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? Have a think about that. That'll give you something to do this Friday, won't it? That'll give you something to do and get yourself stuck into the different layers and different types of intimacy. I'm just going to make sure I've got them all again. We've got experiential, sexual, intellectual, spiritual, emotional, and physical. Okay, so that's 6. That's 6, because physical and sexual often get conflated into one, but they are very different, like very different. You can have non-sexual touch, right, with someone that's a very physically intimate thing, like holding hands or hugging, but there's no kind of, vegetable rubbing, I call it. There's none of that happening. It's a different thing. There you go, there's 6. Think about those intimacies. Think about your favourites. Have conversations with people about what their favourites are. It's a great conversation. And who have you experienced mental intimacy, like intellectual or mental intimacy with? Who's the best hugger? Who's the person that if you wanted someone to hold your hand, who would you get to do it? Who's really good at that? Who's a person you've had an amazing experiential intimacy with, where you've been somewhere or done something and you'll never be able to replicate it? Who's someone that you find very easy to be emotional with? So many questions. There we go. It's a big Friday. Have a nice Friday. Bye.